All right, hi guys. Welcome to your next tutorial in drawing facial features. Today we are going to look at what I personally believe is the toughest part of the face to draw, lips and mouths. So, unlike eyes and noses where maybe you get different angles, with a mouth what happens is not only can you get different angles that you have to draw it by, but you're also dealing with a number of different expressions. So is the mouth open? Is the mouth closed? Are they smiling? Are they frowning? Are they gritting their teeth? There's all sorts of different things that you have to take into consideration when you're drawing the mouth, and it just makes for a really complex subject to draw. But, let's just kind of get into this, and we'll look at some basics here. And I'll show you a few things, and I think a lot of this will just be you experimenting on your own, trying to figure out how to draw certain angles and expressions. But, well, here goes nothing. So, first off, when we're drawing the mouth for just a basic kind of front view, it's kind of important to understand the anatomy of the mouth. Oftentimes, I'll see people draw, these very kind of like cartoonish sort of lips, something like that. And we don't want that. We want to take a look at something that's maybe a little bit more accurate in terms of human anatomy. So when we're doing this, it's important to understand kind of how the lips are made up. So, like our kind of cartoony lips here, we definitely do have these like little mountain peaks up top, but we're going to adjust this and make it look a little bit better. So, what we're looking at when we're drawing the mouth is we're kind of looking at something that looks like this. And again, everyone's mouths are different. We all are made a little bit differently, but I'm gonna show you, a version here that you can use and you can modify. So when we're doing this, what I do is I do the top here, and then we have this little kind of cleft here at the top of the lips. And then the bottom's actually a little flatter than you think. A lot of times you get these very rounded drawings, but our bottom lip is actually a little bit flatter. And then the line that goes across is never a straight line, just because of how your lips are made. We usually have something that looks kind of like this. So this is sort of our basic outline here for lips. Just a little bit of shading there just to give it a little bit of depth. But this is kind of what we're looking for here for a basic lip drawing. Now, here's the tricky part. So if we're doing the same thing and we're doing it from an angle, what happens is maybe we get something that looks a little bit like this. So if that head's just turned a little bit, our lips become very different looking, and we get something that looks like this. And then our bottom lip comes out, and so we get something like this. Okay, and this is where drawing mouths gets very hard because you get all these different angles. I think what's really important to understand is that the lips are very curved. So if we had like a surface line on the lips here, what's gonna happen is that this line's gonna curve in. And the same thing with this bottom lip is that it's gonna curve out. And that's gonna kind of give you an understanding of like the shape of these lips, is that if we have all these surface lines on here, what happens is they all curve in, and that kind of helps to explain the shape or the surface contours of those lips. And like I said, depending on what angle you're drawing them at, it's really going to change that. Now, we can also look at, and maybe doing a little bit of a profile view will help you as well, but if we look at the lips directly from the side, so if we have like a nose, and then we have the lips that come off of here, what we get is we get something like this. So we have a top lip, and then the bottom lip tends to be kind of in a little bit from the top lip. So we have something that kind of looks like this. So, you know, the profile is pretty simple, but it does get pretty shortened. And, you know, there's artists that like to really differentiate between male lips and female lips by kind of exaggerating things, which, you know, you can do. So maybe I've seen it done like for female lips. We really kind of accentuate that that bottom lip, and we get, you know, stuff that looks like this. Now, I'm kind of exaggerating these a little bit just so you can see. So we have stuff that kind of looks like this. All right, so, you know, there's lots of different ways to approach this. And like I said, not only are we focusing on the shape, but we also have to take things like emotions into consideration, whether or not they're smiling, whether or not you can see teeth. So another thing you want to take into consideration here is when you are drawing. So if I have someone who's smiling, so what happens is typically when we smile, our top lip gets a little bit pinched. So we get something like this where the top lip then kind of thins out a little bit. And then maybe I see a lot more of this bottom lip like this. And then the bottom lip is still a little bit thicker. So then we get something that looks like this. So when we go to draw our teeth, what we want to avoid doing is we want to avoid drawing each and every tooth, because what ends up happening is the teeth just end up looking really bad and just kind of crazy. So when you're drawing teeth, typically what you want to do is, if you're smiling like this and you can see this top gum line, typically all you want to do is you just want to draw in that gum line, because in drawing in that gum line, it gives you that illusion of individual teeth. And then, you know, maybe if you see the bottom of the teeth a little bit, you can kind of put the bottom in here and there. But in doing that, we get the illusion of teeth. Whereas if we go in and we try to draw each tooth individually, it just ends up looking like you have really bad teeth. Looks like you're drawing someone that needs like serious dental work. So again, if I'm drawing this mouth, and I didn't make this bottom look quite big enough. And then again, we're smiling, and I draw each individual tooth. What ends up happening, like I said, is it just looks like someone that needs dental work, and that, you know, your teeth just kind of look crazy and not that great. And it just doesn't look that nice. Whereas if you just do these top and bottom outlines, it creates the illusion of teeth, and, you know, gives you kind of a nice, pretty smile. So there are lots of different ways that you can do this. There's lots of different ways that you can draw mouths based on angles, based on emotions. Someone's yelling, maybe you get something like this. And then we get the bottom lip, and like this. Maybe top lip up here. And then, added to how difficult the mouth is already, now we have to put the teeth in here. So then we get the teeth, something like this, that may be jutting out a little bit over the lip. And then, you know, don't forget your tongue, that's in there too. So maybe if someone's mouth is open as such. And like I said, there's all sorts of different emotions you can represent just by drawing the mouth. Or maybe someone's mouth is just open a little bit. and you see like just a little bit of the teeth, and you get something like this, which again is pretty common. So if it's just open a little bit, maybe then you get something that kind of looks like this. So, you know, as we're looking at the mouth, I think the important things to understand is, you know, first off, that basic mouth shape when you're drawing it head on. And then that 3/4 view, which is where we just turn it slightly. And what happens when we do that is one side stays elongated as such, but then we shorten this other side. And then for the bottom, what ends up happening is we get kind of this same slope on the one side, but then on the other side, it kind of juts in a little bit. So when we're doing like a 3/4 view, maybe it ends up being something like that. So, you know, there's a million different ways that you can draw mouths because there's a million different angles, emotions, all sorts of different things that can happen. I think what's important is that you do some real life observations and you really look at the differences, the way that your mouth curves when you're smiling or when you're frowning, or just the way that it looks when you look at it from different angles. I would also suggest going online and finding lots of references. And you can find lots of drawing references, which may be a little bit easier to work from. Sometimes it's easier to work from a drawing reference because, you know, it tends to simplify. So it tends to just kind of really focus on these lines that are important. And so an artist has already kind of broken down the important lines for you so you know what to focus on, opposed to looking at an actual picture where you then have things like shadow and shading and texture. So I would suggest that you go and you look at lots of different drawings of the mouth, and this should help you kind of understand the basic build of it a little bit more. But this is kind of just a brief, real quick overall view of the mouth, and this is a subject where, you know, we could spend a good hour on really exploring how to build this and how to do this. But, you know, this is kind of getting the ball rolling here for you. So hopefully this was a little bit helpful. And thanks for tuning in, guys. And I'll see you next time.